Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is the Rudy Giuliani Show, coming to you from Palm Beach, Florida. So let's begin tonight with our with the big question, I guess, for the world. Huh? The big question is, what's Putin going to do? The ball has been put in Putin's court quite directly by the President of the United States. For and with Ukraine, and that is quite specific and without much ambiguity. Let's have a ceasefire. I believe it's 30 days, complete ceasefire. The original Ukrainian suggestion was, I believe, a ceasefire in the air, drones, airplanes, missiles, but not on the ground. To me, that didn't make much sense, and maybe that was a first offer from them now that they're becoming somewhat more mature negotiators. But they quickly, I wouldn't say caved, they quickly agreed with the more sensible Trump administration proposal of, well, if you're going to stop killing people, stop killing people. Now, it has been my impression up until now that really in both Zelensky's mind and Putin's mind, this war is over, but for some last minute grabs that could give them some tactical advantage. I do think that Putin got a little extra life in creating death when Zelensky made a fool out of himself at the White House. And therefore, he got himself another week or 10 days to try to take Kursk back. Remember, Kursk is the region that Zelensky took in Russia. So for the longest time, this was an all-defensive war for Ukraine. I don't know that they wanted it to be. That was pretty much the handcuffs placed on them by our completely inscrutable group of people running this country for 4 years. They encouraged Ukraine into the war. They did nothing really effective to stop Putin from doing it, except warning them the way a child would warn you not to take his lemonade stand. And then actually on several occasions, not several, almost every day for 2 months, displayed enormous cowardice and fear, and by repeating ad nauseum, there'll be no boots on the ground, 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 no boots on the ground. At that point, Putin, a trained killer, said, I got a coward here. And obviously he handled it that way in Afghanistan. He's been, according to his own political party, wrong on foreign policy his entire life. I'm sure Putin knows that he's a dodo and probably even knew that he was demented. Having said all that, Putin still waited and tested him, let him go for a month of no boots on the ground, no boots on the ground. Completely humiliated the dumb bastard. And then Biden made it really easy by saying, well, if it's only a small invasion, well, we'll see about that. So it was a big invasion, and he took what he wanted, which is the pathway between Russia and Crimea. War blazed on for a while. There were Russian successes, Ukrainian successes, but the Ukrainians got at least what we believe to be step one of what they wanted. Now, what didn't they get? It looked like they had designs on 2 other cities, the 2 richest cities in Ukraine, Kyiv and Kharkiv, and neither of those have they been able to take. Did a lot of damage, but haven't been able to take. And they are outside the zone that Russia is now going to insist on. After being on the defense forever and ever and ever, and this year we'd have to largely blame on Biden, not Zelensky, who was begging for more weapons but not getting them from his. I mean, this is like kind of like putting you in the ring to fight. Remember that big Russian boxer that Rocky had to fight? Was that Rocky 3? But it would be like Burgess Meredith tied his right hand behind his back. which of course was his knockout punch, and said, well, you can jab him all you want. Of course, he's going to get to hit you too. So you get the shit kicked out of you. They take everything you got, and you can't do anything because you may even have a couple of bombs and things that could go into Russia, but you're not allowed to use them, and no really effective ones. Toward the end, the real end, like the last 2 or 3 months of the traitorous Biden administration, Biden gave him more leeway to bomb various parts of Russia. And I don't know if he took Kursk with Biden's permission or just didn't bother to. It was rather ambiguous. But about a year ago, they went into Russia, and it seemed like it was pretty easy pickings taking Kursk. Now, what hasn't been easy pickings is Russia getting it back. Russia has attempted at least 2 or 3 times, now with the help of the North Koreans, to get it back. I do think that possibly one of the things that would be irreparable and permanent damage at Zelensky's not signing up when he should have, which should have been 10 days ago. At that point, Kursk was very strongly in their hands, and the action there by the Russians had calmed down quite a bit because they were having difficulty with North Koreans. The North Koreans were shooting each other and shooting the Russians just as much as the Ukrainians. They don't know the language, and they really are, I mean, honestly, a group of simpletons, because these are people who have never been in a modern country of any kind, nor have they been exposed to anything but one television station all their lives. I mean, these are probably the most isolated human beings in the world. And now you're asking them to get engaged in what is, between Russia and Ukraine, a fairly sophisticated war. And I think actually they've done Russia more harm than good. However, lately, Russia has been having success. By lately, I mean the last week. And I think Putin is now playing for a little more time. He'd love to get Kursk back so he doesn't have to negotiate for it. And again, the other guy made a terrible mistake by not initiating these things as early as possible when he didn't have designs, again, on Kursk. But there we are. So Putin has apparently given a ambiguous answer. He hasn't said no, and he hasn't said yes. He has said, if I have this correctly, the message back as given to us by the Trump administration is that Russia has said yes in principle, but they need to discuss it more. I don't know what. Well, I guess the big question is, does that mean they all stop shooting or not? I guess we'll find out tonight, right? Sounds to me like. Well, it sounds to me like Putin would like, but is probably too smart to be that open. He'd like to say, look, you can stop all shooting except Kursk, because I think I got a pretty good chance of taking it from you. But of course, nobody's going to agree to that. And we have actually, maybe to wake them up a little, we've actually given over the course of the last day or so, when he opened up arms, we're giving either sending them or giving them permission to use weapons we didn't give them permission to use before. And during the course of this, meaning on Monday, Ukraine carried out one of its most brutal attacks on Moscow with drones. Its biggest drone attack and its most damage right in the heart of the capital city of Russia. So the tragedy here is we're so close to some kind of a truce that you don't want to see people die now. But the only one who seems to have any urgency about this is our president. It seems like Putin is waiting for the best tactical moment, no matter how many more people he has to kill. We expect that of Putin, right? I mean, if you don't expect that of Putin, you have never met him or read his history or taken a realistic look at what he does. More than being even a communist, what he really is a murderer. And he's I believe he's improperly interpreted as a communist. I believe that he's a nationalist. He's a Russian nationalist who wants to recreate the Russian Empire, not the Soviet Union. And I mean, that's good news for some countries and bad news for others. So what is he going to do? Rudy's opinion? Going to play it out for a few more days. Going to want to meet. I mean, after all, the Ukrainians had a chance to meet. They had a chance to meet earlier, but not to try to persuade the United States on this offer. I think he's going to try to carry on the fighting until he decides, no, it's not worth it. I can't get Kursk back, or I can get it back. And now let's see how they get territory from me. What are they going to give me? Because he has come into it with a statement made that he's giving up no territory. Now, don't know that he said that himself or how locked into it he is. But there is a way out of that. If Ukraine has Kursk, then to get some territory back, one could see a face-saving exception that some territory has to be given back. To get their territory back, they're going to have to give back some territory in Ukraine. And I have no doubt, even though I have not said one word to him or anybody else in the administration, I can read their minds. I know exactly what part of Ukraine they want. And if it isn't that part, boy, it is their part. And not that we're not going to get enough minerals in the part of Ukraine controlled by Ukraine. That does have 2/3 of the minerals, but a very small part of Russia has 1/3. A very small part of Ukraine has 1/3 in the Russian-occupied part of Ukraine. So as you can imagine, that's going to be our focus. And I would imagine the Ukrainian focus, because those minerals are not only valuable now, but if the expected race with regard to artificial intelligence and quantum computing goes on between the United States and China, they will increase in value enormously. And they're giving away 50% to us, who can market it better and use it better. It's probably one of the wisest economic moves they've ever made to help the country. Most of their wise economic moves are for them to help themselves. Please remember, and we constantly forget it because we go into a liberal fantasy tizzy over Zelensky. It is the crookedest country in the world, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth. It almost doesn't materially differ if you're in the top 100. Number two, Zelensky is a product directly right out of that tradition, made by one of the key crooked organized crime oligarchs who knows where all of Joe's dirty money is, and everybody else. So somehow that has to be factored into what happens. And I know that's factored into Trump's offer, because if this arrangement takes place, the U.S. will handle it and make sure it is done with the kind of honesty and integrity that would be required, with the SEC looking it over. And maybe for once, just for once, since they've been free, the Ukrainian people will get something out of it. I mean, it's been pathetic for them. They've had, 8 or 10 prime ministers, all premiers and president, all crooked, except one. And that guy got destroyed with poison. And this guy, Zelensky's been no better. Although the silly appeasers in the West have put him on maybe they're crooked too. I don't know. Hard to put this guy on a pedestal. Earlier, before it was conveyed to him directly and officially, Putin was whining that nobody talks to him. I swear to God, these guys, I don't know. They really think this works? Nobody is talking to us, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. They keep saying nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, but they do everything about Russia without Russia. Didn't we just meet with them for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in the same Saudi Arabia that we met with Ukraine? Didn't Ukraine get mad that they weren't there? Sergey, you don't remember that? I mean, Lavrov is about as bad a guy as you're going to get also, but let's try to separate competence and morality. This guy is about as shrewd a foreign policy operator as you're going to find. But this is a little stupid. You're not talking to us. I mean, it is quite, I've settled cases, right? I've even been appointed to referee cases. It is quite common, and the judge I clerked for when I was a baby used to do this. So you talk to them, and then you send one side out of the room, and you talk to one side, and you sort of take the position of the other side. You know, you're going to lose this case. You better settle. You better settle. You better settle. And the other side comes in, and you say to them, "You're going to lose this case. You better settle. You better settle. You better settle." You play out whatever is legitimate in terms of the facts, which could be interpreted one way or the other. And so you better make an agreement. You send them out of the room when you do that. There's no question that it made sense to meet with Russia alone, because although Ukraine thinks it's the biggest issue in the world, and hey, for them maybe it is, there's an awful lot more things between us and Russia, much more important than Ukraine. Ukraine is not, for example, as critically vital to our national security as, let's say, China's presence in Panama, or the possibility of missiles in Cuba, or even the whole situation with Iran and Israel, where Iran threatens death to America. Ukraine existed under Russia forever, and it was never a threat to us. We're talking about Poland, different, not only because of NATO, but because that's a big step, a big different kind of step than trying to take back what you think correctly or unjustly you own. It doesn't mean we shouldn't fight for them, it means we should help them. It means you have different grades of when does it really get close and what gets closer to protecting yourself, or are you doing it for somebody else? But this complaint that nobody talks to us by the Russians, I don't know. It's a little below Lavrov's level of sophistication and diplomacy. That we do plenty of talking with the Russians, and we actually talk to the Russians first. And again, I believe that's justified, because Ukraine can't blow up the world, Russia can. So that means no matter how much we hate them, we got to understand them. And if you act like a stupid idiot and are afraid to talk to them, like the last excuse for a president did, you get us pretty close to nuclear war. That's the reason Khrushchev and, was it Kennedy, that inserted the direct line? Might have been Eisenhower, I don't remember. But they inserted a direct line. Might have been after the Cuban Missile Crisis that they decided we better have a way of talking directly to each other. Kennedy would have been very sensitive about that, because he wrote a book in which he said that he analyzed the beginning of the Second World War, and he said it was really for want of the countries understanding each other's positions clearly. And he vowed as a president to always make sure that the other side knew precisely what America's position is. So if we were going to have a war, we were going to have it for real. Trump, by the way, is very good at that. He just does it naturally because he expresses himself, and you know where he is. And if you don't, you just don't have a pair of ears. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Tired of volatile stocks and tiny dividend yields? Here's something different. Imagine collecting steady monthly income from America's richest oil fields without owning a single oil stock. While everyone else stresses about the market, you could be earning passive royalty income month after month. This unique investment has nothing to do with drilling, exploration, or operations. You simply collect your share of the profits when oil companies pump oil. The Oxford Club's Mark Lichtenfeld has found what he calls the perfect income investment, a unique oil royalty opportunity that's still flying under Wall Street's radar. And you can get started with just $25. Head to RudyOilBoom.com now to discover more. That's RudyOilBoom.com. Stop worrying about the market and start collecting oil royalty checks instead.
NATO, head of NATO. Welcome back. Is Rudy Giuliani on the Rudy Giuliani Show. You know, today the president spent a good deal of time with somebody that he should, right? He's fairly new head of NATO, Mark Rutte, and seemed very comfortable with him and extremely laudatory. So let's go to, is Kara available? Let's go to Kara, who was at the White House today, and let's see what her impressions were of what went on with Rutte. And then during the course of that, he had a whole big, like, flowing press conference.
That's right. And Mayor, as we await our connection with Kara, of course, the president had very kind words to say about the new NATO chief. I believe he comes from Finland. Is that correct?
Yeah, and he said he was an excellent prime minister.
He did. He was very, very positive on the new leader of NATO. Which would that bring additional comfort to NATO members? Of course, a lot of time.
Well, of course. Now you got to remember. You got to remember that when Zelensky acted like an idiot in the White House, and they basically had to kick him out on his ass, Rutte said Zelensky better shape up. I mean, Rutte made it real clear who's got the cards. When Trump was saying you don't have any cards, it seemed like Rutte knew that Trump had all the cards.
Right.
So I would think that'd be another reason why Trump would be extremely laudatory. The guy sort of positioned NATO exactly where it should be, where the pathetic creature of modern, feckless Western Europe that is not worth a damn. The guy who got elected in Germany, started a battle with Trump. And not only that, he's ignored the right-wing party that won with him in favor of the left-wing Communist Party.
Right.
So, I mean, that's exactly what happened to Merkel. The tail wagged the dog. Originally, she was the dog, and the tail with the left-wing parties that she put in her government.
Right.
And then she let in, more illegal migrant criminals than they have Germans.
Right.
So the country pretty soon will be the Islamic Republic of Germany.
That's right. And despite the media's smears against the president and the misinformation regarding him and NATO, the fact that he's been calling for an increase in spending from these countries above to,
Oh yeah, they'd be doing
above
it without
2%.
Absolutely. Right. All these years they didn't do it because nobody told them to.
So President Trump is the best thing that could happen to NATO. Think about
if God forbid one of these days we go to war with China and they're ready for the war, and as a joint enterprise we're able to crush China, he'll be the greatest hero in he'll be to the entire Europe what Eisenhower was, or what Winston Churchill was, or what MacArthur was to Japan.
And Mayor, I believe we have Kara at the White House.
Kara, how are you?
Right back here.
Hey, could you guys hear me?
We can hear you great, Kara.
Okay,
So
great.
To us, it seems to us that a lot of the White House day was spent on Ruddy, the head of NATO. But during his flowing press conference, he talked about everything.
He did. He talked about a lot of things. A lot of questions were taken by the president. I think after that press conference, they went into a private lunch to really have some serious discussions, not in front of the press, about obviously the fate of Ukraine and the war and everything going on with NATO and Europe paying their fair share, which during that press conference, I was surprised myself to see how much the Secretary General of NATO actually was in agreement with President Trump, saying that he agrees that Europe has not paid its fair share. And he was amazed, and he gave a lot of accolades to President Trump for speaking very harshly about Europe, because he said he has actually gotten Europe to now pay their fair share, or at least they're on the way there. So he was thanking President Trump for really calling out the European nations and not paying their fair share, as well as commending him for finally getting the ball rolling when it comes to peace talks for Ukraine, opening the door to talking with the Russians, with those Saudi Arabian talks that are going on. And he said that no president was able to do this before, so he really was happy about that. So I was surprised to see how much they were on the same page and how much respect both men had for each other.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of backdoor work done to get him that job, because a week ago, when Zelensky was thrown out of the White House, this guy Ruddy supported Trump. One of the few Europeans to say, "What are you, crazy? This guy, you don't throw out the guy that's buttering your bread." I mean, you don't embarrass the guy who's buttering your bread. But how does Ukraine think it ever held off Russia without America? So it was you couldn't tell whether he liked Trump or it was just a common sense, obvious thing. But it looks like they're very much on the same wavelength, which should satisfy a lot of these people that think that NATO is going to go away. And he's going to make it into something real.
Right.
I'd love to see Japan.
Go ahead,
I'd love to
Mr.
see
Mayor.
Japan. I'd love to see Japan and Israel in NATO. Man, you'd have two great armies. I mean, Israel is better than any army in Europe right now. I mean, if I had to go to war and you said you can have Europe on your side or Israel, I'd say, stay home, Europe. We'll go with Israel. And you give Japan 2 years, and it'll give China an awful lot of trouble. I mean, the Japanese have been warriors for about 2,000 years. It's in their blood.
For sure.
So what else?
So, well, that was what happened really today at the White House. I know a lot of people are talking about the CDC, Weldon, and why he didn't actually have his confirmation. Just hours before that confirmation hearing, the White House pulled his nomination because, from what I understand, there wasn't enough votes in the Senate. I think the Senate just wanted that one win where they wouldn't get one of Trump's confirmation picks in, which is really unfortunate because he was one of the better ones, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion for that matter. He was really a warrior during the lockdowns, really had the steel backbone to, really speak out against some of those lockdowns and some of those mandates that were going on during the Biden administration. So that guy, unfortunately, will not be the head of the CDC, but hopefully they will be able to find somebody just as competent as he is. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that because, as you know, medical freedom and getting a healthy America and making America healthy again is definitely one of my top priorities, just like a lot of Americans that voted for President Trump.
Well, sure. I mean, you think about it, it's the most critical part of our national security. I mean,
Yeah.
America is in trouble if somebody comes here and kills us or we get ourselves killed. Right? So I think
No,
the
for sure.
president.
If you don't have healthy Americans, you don't have a country. People say if we don't have a border, we don't have a country, but we need healthy men and women to fight and to be smart and actually, do the right thing. So if everybody is unhealthy mentally and physically, obviously, we're not going to have a great country.
So what is it like in Washington now? Have things calmed down? Or were there demonstrations yesterday about these colleges where people are being thrown out, or that Hamas creep that's getting thrown out from Colombia? Have had
There
demonstrations?
were more demonstrations, over at Trump Hotel. There were a lot of demonstrations, from what I understand, in New York. I didn't personally see any of them. There were more demonstrations this week having to do with Black Lives Matter. They call it Black Lives Matter Plaza. They're
Right.
removing that, so there was a lot of anger over that on the end of the left. And then, today, as you know, there were those protesters that went inside Trump Hotel and protested, in favor of the gentleman, like you said, that is being deported back to, I guess, his country
The tr-
for.
did
Go
anybody
ahead,
tell
Mr.
them it's not the Trump Hotel anymore?
I'm
I mean,
not sure. I
I
think
know they don't know. I know they don't know the two rivers they're talking about, the river and the sea. Nor do they have any idea that Israel doesn't occupy Gaza, hasn't for 15 years. But do they know it's not the Trump Hotel anymore? It's the poor Waldorf
I'm
Astoria that they're attacking?
I'm not sure. I guess that they wanted to make headlines and make a splash, and they did. Thank God nobody was hurt. Is all I have to say. I'm glad nobody was hurt.
Soros may sue them for their money back because they went to the wrong hotel.
Right. I know a lot of people are. There is a rumor that a lot of these protests, as you know, could possibly be, not real or someone's being paid. But I have no substantiation of that. But we've been around these protests
Right.
for a long time, so we know that those protests, especially in New York, certainly exist.
Well, let's see what happens tomorrow. We should get an answer from Putin tomorrow. Beyond,
Look, yes, everybody's looking forward to the answer from Putin. Hopeful that he'll accept the ceasefire deal, I guess, in terms that he thinks is fair. I know that there was some concern. I was reading some people who are really geopolitical experts over there in Eastern Europe that they're concerned that the 30-day ceasefire will actually allow Ukraine a chance to really be able to, arm up some more and reestablish their military. So they're looking at it like that strategically, like this is really a trick, and this could be Ukraine just trying to reestablish their military and having a 30-day break. So that's what they're thinking, at least some of them, or at least some strategists that I've seen. But for the most part, I think Putin is really, really wanting this war to end, really wants peace. And I think that he just really wants to come to a deal with President Trump.
well, I have no doubt that President Trump wants peace, but he's not in that sense. He's a very, very straightforward guy. So he wouldn't have gone this far talking about peace or trying to create peace or really pushing Ukraine and Russia very, very hard. But the other two guys, I don't know. They probably have 10 different strategies. And I always worry about Zelensky because he comes out of such a crooked situation where just getting the money helps him. And then, of course, Putin, I personally think Putin wants to get Kursk back because he'd rather not have to negotiate to get it back. And
Right.
by delaying things, they've given him new life. So I think he's going to delay a little more to see if he can get Kursk back. But let's see. We'll find out tomorrow, and we'll have you there to
Should
tell
be
us about it.
interesting. Yes, I definitely will be. And I heard Kathy Hochul, this is a rumor now. I heard she's going to be here from New York, the governor, here at the White House
Oh, that
tomorrow
should be
morning.
exciting. What I would
Not for me.
suggest,
I'm not looking forward to seeing her. As you know, she's
that'll
not
be
the greatest
exciting.
governor.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, since she is the governor of New York, when she comes, when you meet her at the airport so she doesn't get lost, I mean, she doesn't
I don't
really have
know.
much of a
Maybe
brain. She doesn't have much of a
yeah,
brain.
I'm interested to see why she's here. There really wasn't a lot of information out on what they were talking about. I didn't know if it was, I know Trump is really against congestion pricing, and she's really ruined a lot of people's lives in New York. That congestion pricing is out of control, and so many patriotic people are against it. So I know that they have that disagreement, but I'm not exactly sure why she's here. This news just came out, at least to the press, like that it was confirmed that she would likely be here in the morning.
President sounded rather excited. He said, "What a nice person she is." I couldn't tell what
I
kind of
think he likes
expression.
to say that. I think that he's very charming and he likes to say things like that because that's, why not get on someone's good side? It's always good to come in with sugar and not
Yeah,
vinegar,
she calls him all kinds of
so
names. She's called him
exactly.
Hitler.
She does.
Well, got to be fun covering that place. God bless you.
It is. Thank
We'll
you,
talk to you
Mr. Mayor.
tomorrow.
God bless you. Talk to you tomorrow.
Well, wasn't that was interesting, finding out what's going on in the Puzzle Palace. And sounds like Kara's got a pretty good handle on it. Nobody can have I don't think the president's chief of staff or nobody has a handle on the White House. You just do the best you can. Constantly you're organizing for one thing and a new thing comes on. There you are in the middle of all this and something happens in England. And, well, in any event, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You all know I stand by the truth. And if I put my name on something, I truly believe in it. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to something I'm incredibly proud of. My own brand of organic specialty coffee, Rudy Coffee. Believe me when I say it's the best coffee you'll ever try. It's smooth, rich, chocolatey, and gentle on your stomach. It's so good, I even recommend drinking it black. It comes in 3 varieties, including what I promise is the best decaf you'll ever have. You can order now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting rudy.coffee. By supporting Rudy Coffee, you're not just treating yourself to exceptional coffee, you're also supporting our cause, the cause of truth, justice, and American democracy. You'll also be supporting the Call to Action nonprofit, which is devoted to helping veterans and first responders, so you can make a difference and taste the difference by ordering today at rudy.coffee.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our spring percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to mypillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Tired of volatile stocks and tiny dividend yields? Here's something different. Imagine collecting steady monthly income from America's richest oil fields without owning a single oil stock. While everyone else stresses about the market, you could be earning passive royalty income month after month. This unique investment has nothing to do with drilling, exploration, or operations. You simply collect your share of the profits when oil companies pump oil. The Oxford Club's Mark Lichtenfeld has found what he calls the perfect income investment, a unique oil royalty opportunity that's still flying under Wall Street's radar. And you can get started with just $25. Head to rudyoilboom.com now to discover more. That's rudyoilboom.com. Stop worrying about the market and start collecting oil royalty checks instead.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with you on the Rudy Giuliani Show. And I thought the report from Kara was quite interesting. This is different than last time, Ted. Remember when the White House started last time, they stayed rather traditional with the press briefing by the press secretary, and the president then would always get caught up in some kind of press conference. And I can tell you from what happened. I mean, the president would change everything. They'd have the press conference at the usual 1 or 2 o'clock, I think. And Sean Spicer was the press secretary originally, and he'd give an excellent briefing. And then all of a sudden, by 4 o'clock or 5, when the president was leaving and the press would catch him, he changed the whole thing. And of course, they'd be attacking him over everything, contradicting him over everything, in most cases falsely, but you still had to correct it.
That's right.
So the press office was there until 2 a.m. And then every day they preparing something that was something different. Well, eventually, you remember, they stopped the press briefing by the press secretary, and they waited until the president went out and made did his press conference, his free-flowing, long-ranging press conference. And then, if necessary, the press secretary or the communication would come out and have a press conference and either add more facts, clarify things, sort of recognizing the fact this was a different White House where the agenda was really directly set by the president. Now, this is a little different. This is much more disciplined. The president's interviews, although today the interview took place before the press conference, but the coordination between the two so far has been seamless. Now, that rarely happens. I mean, in the Trump White House at the beginning, obviously it wasn't going to happen because he was new, had to get used to it. But even in the Biden White House, which was vapid because everybody was stupid, but they were extremely disciplined. And they'd have big gaps between her explanation and what somebody's put out. I mean, of course, he never talked, so that was easy. But people would talk for him, whoever was the designated Wizard of Oz for the day who was behind the screen. Say quid pro quo. Say we're withdrawing from Afghanistan. Say it was a great withdrawal, the best ever. Say there's no inflation. That kind of thing. There was somebody behind the curtain, and then Biden would come out and say, no inflation. Border secure. So even with the limited messaging ability of the president, and I mean the president's office, there were always contradictions going on. And it normally happens that way. This is a very, very professional White House. Or this press secretary is more on the ball than most, because I haven't seen a gap between the two of them yet. And I mean, that happens just given the rush of events.
Right. There's just so much
misunderstandings. These things are communicated very, very quickly. You don't get a chance to write it down, go over it, read it. These are the items for today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's very, very likely that one of them, somebody's going to communicate it one way and somebody communicate it. The biggest gap has been that idiot in Israel that went over and started negotiating with Hamas all by himself and basically said that we have interests that are separate from Israel's. Right. He should have been kicked right across the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, and back to wherever he came from.
That's right.
It's time for him to take 10 years of training and grow up and become an adult.
That's right, Mayor. And Mayor, in your experience, of course, you've been to a lot of places around the world, and you've worked for a number of presidents. How abnormal is it, kind of his actions and how that played out?
Him?
Yes.
Not abnormal at all. There are always somebody who goes off on their own. I'm actually, that happened a lot more in his first term. So far, if you think about it, I mean, there probably is some others. I can't think of a major one other than that. And they handled it. I mean, credit to Rubio, he handled it very, very smoothly.
Seemed to.
It was a one-off. That's a nice way to say screw up, What the hell in a enormously intricate a life and death negotiation. What the hell is a one-off other than a terrible mistake?
Seems a little
But a nicer way to say it. And I don't know how old this guy is. He looks like he's a kid. So he made a mistake, but a lot of arrogance in that mistake, though. I mean, there are mistakes and there are mistakes. But I don't know how you negotiate for us, meaning the Trump administration and the MAGA movement and the great affection and that we have for Israel. And you don't naturally have an instinct that you can't put daylight between us and Israel. If you don't have that instinct, you really I'll use what I used to do when my assistants really screwed up. I'd say there might be a better way to make a living. You may not have the instinct for this, because you can make a much worse mistake than that if you don't have the sense in the Trump administration that you don't say we have separate interests from Israel to your enemy. Then there's something wrong with it. Something wrong here, meaning you're not cut out for tough negotiating or even being somebody's spokesman. Right. So I can't imagine there's ever been a time in history. Somebody correct me, because we have the people that watch this show and they really are good historians. I mean, I'm good, but we got some better ones. And I'm sorry that Dr. Maria is not here. She's still in Italy. But I don't remember the United States making this kind of war on anti-Semitism. I mean, we've had wars on racism. In fact, you could say that the Obama and Biden administration, particularly the Biden administration, was a war on a racism that didn't exist anymore. And we've tried to deal with other forms of prejudice against women, the women's rights movement, the civil rights movement. We've had smaller but yet sustained movements to try to make us sensitive to the rights of Asians and Islamophobia. We never really take up the cause of anti-Semitism. And my goodness, we never take up the cause of anti-Christian bias, do we? So I am quite excited that the president is personally doing it. And I hope, and I do mean this for political reasons, because to me, it's just, I hope every Jewish person who, and I think I can make this appeal to you without pandering, because I'm not Jewish, but I really am. I wish every Jewish person who seriously values a homeland for the Jewish people realizes not so much how good Trump has been, and he has, but how the Democrat Party is really your avowed enemy. It isn't even like it was. I mean, I always thought Bush 43, and I think you did too, that was a very good friend of Israel. But at that time, the Democratic Party had a lot of people that were good friends. I mean, Schumer hadn't become a traitor yet, and Durbin had used to speak up. They now let the agenda get dominated by AOC and the anti-Semites. And even if they may disagree, they're too cowardly to do it, so it has no effect. And then in some cases, I used to think that was it. But when Schumer went and actually interfered in the Israeli election to try to defeat Bibi, that was the last straw for me. I just see them as avowed enemies of the state of Israel. You realize if Schumer had been effective in that, just think of how much damage that traitor could have done. Assad would still be in Syria. Hezbollah would be powerful as hell as a organization that kills Jews and Americans. Hamas probably would be half around, and the Houthis would be taking ships out one by one in the Red Sea, because in that period of time that he was condemned by Schumer and told by Biden not to do anything. See, that's what a ceasefire means. He accomplished all of that. He really reduced. He really reduced Iran to an emperor without clothes. Because a year or so ago, Iran was thought to be ascendant. Look how brilliantly they organized their little empire, or their big empire. They had, they had all of Iraq for a while. We got about a quarter to half of it back. but they have a portion of Iraq. They had all of Syria. They had the Hezbollah that brought them Lebanon. They were beginning a year ago, more than that, to establish a relationship with Hamas and bridging the Sunni Shia gap. They had strong relationships with Yemen and the Houthis, who were Shiite like them. And they were patching up relationships with Turkey, China, and Russia. And they were just getting too powerful, according to all the geniuses. Of course, Ted and I, as you know from Ali Reza and our discussions of MEK, know quite a bit more about the internals in Iraq than our anti-American State Department. And we knew it was much bigger, an open question than that. But everybody thought, wow. And I want you to take a look at the difference now. And there's one person responsible for that. I mean, there's one person who led that against trying to be held back by the United States, and that's Benjamin Netanyahu. And of course, the incredibly effective Israeli army. I like them as an ally, boy. Told you I might trade all those NATO FOPs for the Israeli army. Not Eastern Europe, please. When I talk about my concerns about Europe, I am never talking about Eastern Europe. I'm talking about the antiquated countries that are living off things that were built, during the Middle Ages, maybe the Renaissance and Reformation. They haven't built too much worse in about 300 or 400 years. And there doesn't seem to be much of a spirit of becoming modern. And to the extent that there is, they try to paint those parties as Nazi. That's their default position, like the Democrats call everybody racist. So Trump, I would say, already, and I think by the time he's finished, there'll be no question, has done the most to take on anti-Semitism, the most recent one being tossing these people out who have no right to be here. If you are not a citizen of the United States, you don't have a right to be here. It's a privilege to be here. You don't have a right to go to Russia. You don't have a right to go to Italy. They have the right to give you the privilege to go there. And they want to keep you out, they can keep you out. And they don't have to have a lot of reasons for it. You don't have any rights in Italy. Maybe once you're there, you do as in terms of international law, and you have to be treated humanely. But treated humanely doesn't mean they have to let you in. They can let in anybody. It's their country. They can let in anybody they want or not. I mean, we've lost complete sight of that because Marx wanted us to do. And Biden and Obama, of course, were carrying out the communist will. So I don't understand the big deal about throwing out Mahmoud Khalil. He's done more to be thrown out than why a judge has any trouble seeing that the president has fulfilled the standard of there's reasonable grounds to throw this guy out because he's dangerous to the national security of the United States. I got to imagine this judge had put his head in a communist barrel and filled up his ears with a bunch of Marxist crap. As I said, I know his mother, and I had great respect for his brother as an economist, even though he was in the Obama administration. And even though I disagreed with him, I didn't think he was a fool. I think this judge is acting extrajudicially, almost to the point of illegally. I mean, the decision on immigration rests with the executive branch, not the judiciary. And therefore, the deference that should be given is you don't make the decision all over again as to whether the president is right or wrong, judge. You only reverse this if the president is acting illegally. He's got to be totally wrong. There can be no, if he's got a rational basis for fearing that this hurts the national security of the United States, he gets the right to act on that, not you. What the hell do you know about the national security of the United States? You don't get the briefings that he's doing. And this is all the distortion that came about, starting with the communist infiltration of the Wilson administration. And our judges become activists, which means ultimately then we don't have a law. We just have the opinions of the people that are in power, which is exactly the tyranny of the majority that Hamilton and Jefferson and all the others warned against. And it's the one that Trump is reversing, and why it's so bitter. So, amazing warrior. Trump and the people around him. Look at that Elon Musk. Wow. What he has to take. I know you're going to say it's easier to take it if you're the richest man in the world, but it never is. And the richest man in the world has the same feelings everybody else has. So my feelings and empathy for people have nothing to do with how much money they have, because the internal suffering they go through is pretty universal. So let's thank God one more time that we got the right president at the right time once again, because he is making so much progress, and we're seeing things and analyzing things now that had to be analyzed 30, 40 years ago. It's quite amazing, particularly when he has these conversations with you can see that the head of NATO is delighted to have, and I think they agree, but even if you disagree, you're delighted to have a functioning brain in the White House and not a demented moron idiot with who knows how many people smoking crack around him. So we'll be with you tomorrow. At 8:00 we'll be on X on America's Mayor Live. We've got plenty coming. We got plenty coming up for you there. So much happened today, and we'll be back with you tomorrow at 7 right here on the Rudy Giuliani Show. God bless the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America. And you see the red here? Start getting ready for green. You know what I mean. God bless America.